Hey all, this is another shop infrastructure project. Basically, I'm finally getting around to getting these machinist bins a rack. I'm going to be welding up a vertical rack to hold the 8 of them next to the lockers here so that I can use these for organizing in the shop, but also so I can get them out of the way because I've been tripping over them for several months now. So here we go. Step 1, buy a bunch of steel off a guy cleaning out a factory. Step 2, visit the awesome Steel Yard Industrial Art Space in Providence, borrow their bandsaw, chop a bunch of that steel into little tiny pieces. Step 3, build a jig so that I can make all the shelves the same size. Jig is built. Normally I wouldn't build a jig that I'm going to use a bunch out of wood, but I'm welding up all of 8 of these, and I'm going to use the jig for tacking, and I had scrap wood. This is all trash anyway, so it's not going to hurt it if I damage it. But basically the idea is, as you can see, this bar is held in place here, up against this, up against that, same thing on this side, and this spacing and this spacing are close enough as makes no odds. So what I have to just do is drop these 2 bars in, shove this bar in this corner, shove this bar in this corner, and then I can weld here, 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 and here, knowing that they're all going to be the same relative to each other. And then once I've got all 8 built, then I can weld them all into the frame much easier because they're all the same. I don't have to try and build them in the frame. I don't have to do a bunch of measuring on every single one and hope I get it all right. This will just speed the process up massively. Step 4, clean all the parts of these pieces you're going to be welding. Step 5. Spend 6 hours helping a friend by welding up the rust in his truck, such that you don't get back to this project till the next day. This step is optional. Step 6. Weld up your 8 shelf supports. Bonus step. Get an amazing local artist to decorate your helmet. Cool as hell, huh? Step 7. Arbitrarily define a top and a bottom for each shelf, and then grind them smooth so that the bins will slide easily over them. Step 8. Add an 18-inch extension to make your metal long enough for the cabinet. Alternately, be less of a cheapskate than I am, and just buy metal the right length. Step 9. Hack a ½ an inch off the front 2 verticals, modify some nuts so that they will slide in, and then weld them in so that you can use a stainless steel nut as an adjustable front foot. Step 10, set up the table as a straight-on jig, weld them all together, making a spacer to make sure they're all spaced the right way. Step 11, weld the front verticals onto the shelf brackets, making sure to adjust everything that's twisted from the heat of welding so that everything's still straight and true. And here we are, one completely built rack. I built this again to fit those bins, and it fits them perfectly. So now I can stack 8 of them to give me a bunch more storage. These bins will eventually probably get cleaned and degreased. This is all grease on top of them, so they'll get massively degreased and painted, but that's a low priority. I am gonna prime and paint the stand so that it's protected. I also have the stand for my Quickjacks over here that never got painted last year, so that's going to get taken down, and I'm going to prime and paint both of them. And then that piece is going to go in between the lockers and the table. The table's going to get scooched that way. This is going to come down and it's going to go there, and so that'll clean up this pile of bins. Turns out I have 10 of them. I don't have 8, so I'm going to have 2 spare anyway. But it's going to clear out this pile of bins so that both my welder and my welding cart can go under there. And a bunch of things that are in this area will be able to go in those bins so that I can clear this area out and make some space for myself again and be able to clean the garage up more than it's been able to for several months. Alright, well, you just saw me performing step 13, paint them. And true to form, as you saw at the end, it kind of went poorly. Basically, I started out brushing, realized it was getting really poor coverage and was going to take me forever. So I switched to a cheap paint gun, thinned down that same Rust-Oleum, and shot that on it. It may have looked a little weird how I was doing it, because I did part of this one and then switched to that one and then came back to this one. What it was I wasn't sure I was going to have enough paint, so I hit all the areas on this one that are clearly visible when it's installed, switched over to that one, did all the parts on that one that were clearly visible when it's installed. Then went back and touched up sort of, I didn't cover everything on this because there's areas that will never matter, but, you know, made sure to touch up edges and stuff. And then basically went back on this one and just kept painting parts of it until I ran out of paint. I ran out of paint kind of violently. I knocked the container of paint off the gun while I was trying to get inside it, splattered it everywhere. Tried to fit it on, it fell off again, tried to fit it on, it fell off, managed to get it back on again. Sprayed some more, but it was not spraying properly at that point. So just did the last little touch-up things and then threw the rest of the paint out. Threw the gun out too, for that matter, because it's now coated in paint inside and out. And it was a $8 gun, so it's just not even worth trying to save it. But yeah, these are now finished. This is that rack, obviously, that I was building. This is the Quickjack Rack. I actually made some modifications to it. I had the mount that holds the pump there and the hook that holds the pump wiring the other way around, and it was a pain when you were opening it and closing it, just because the pump would get caught on stuff. So I swapped them, so basically moved everything over, but then put the hook over on that side. And then I added this 4th foot here, just because this was really unstable. It was screwed to the lockers in the wall, so it wasn't actually falling over, but every time you swung the center section out here, you were outside of its triangle of support, so it was pulling on the wall, and I didn't want those screws or bolts to pull out, so I just added a 4th foot to give it a little more stability. But yeah, these are going to dry out here probably overnight. Of course, it's still wet. Why did I even touch it? And then tomorrow I will install them. Step 14, install your newly painted cabinet. This has been installed. I've secured it to the stud in the wall and adjusted the feet so that it's properly supporting itself. It will eventually get tied into the cabinet next to it up here somewhere. I just have to figure out the best way to go about that. The Quickjack Rack has also been reinstalled and resecured to the cabinet next to it. You saw me break out the welder. That's because the bottom hinge here turned out not to be secured as well, and when I torqued it a certain way, it popped the weld, so I went in and put a few more welds in just to reinforce it. But you saw my whole big pile of junk down on the floor here. It's now away in just a few of those cabinets. And getting the short cans of paint and polyurethane and whatnot out of that bottom cabinet let me put those tall containers of various chemicals in there that wouldn't fit somewhere else. So obviously still going to neaten up, but it cleared this whole area out, got that stuff properly away. If any of those cans of paint leak, it doesn't matter because those containers are metal and they're sealed. These, I haven't filled the rack because these all have oil in the bottom of them, so they all need to be degreased before I can use them at all. Eventually all of them will be properly degreased and cleaned and painted, just because they're all really grimy right now. But now they're functional, this rack can be used, and I've added a little bit more storage space as a result above, so that just gives me the ability to use more. The original plan, I realized why I have 10 of these and not 8, was the original plan was to go all the way up to the ceiling. But I realized, once I realized that was what it was, I kind of thought, okay, do I want to add that on? And then realized, no, I don't want to be lugging one of these giant bins from the very top of what I could possibly reach. So I'd rather just put a tote up there. The other 2 bins will get used somewhere else. I'll probably integrate them in when I build the new benches over here. But that's all for today. Shop infrastructure. Cleaning, organizing, less mess, always a good thing. Next video I'm hoping will be me working on the fender of the Oldsmobile, but it'll just depend on timing and if some new problem crops up with a car or if I get a bug up my butt to do some more shop stuff. So I'll see you later, whatever we end up doing, and thanks for watching. Bye.